recognizing that Biden was siding with these auto workers and the country was with him and with them on this, one of the Republican candidates did try to do something different.
In fact, I went up to Michigan to save the United Auto Workers from their union because their union was negotiating a terrible thing, doing a terrible thing.
The day after Biden ended up on the picket line in Michigan, this one Republican candidate decided not to go to that Republican presidential candidate's debate. He skipped it. And instead, he himself went to Michigan to go try to do basically what Biden did, to go show up and be seen with the union auto workers in Michigan. Kind of. He instead went to a non-union auto parts facility, and while his campaign tried to convince people to say that he was there speaking to striking auto workers, or at least he was speaking to auto workers, the problem was that real reporters actually went to the event, and they realized quickly that this was a facility that doesn't have anybody in a union. As of right now, there are receipts. Literal receipts.
Oh, that's gotta hurt! Hold the phone. So you're telling me that a guy that once said this...
Same thing with the unions.
That's right.
They get their little 5%. They get another 2%. They get another 3%, 4%. Then all of a sudden they're making more money than the people that own the company.
Would skip a debate to speak at a fake union auto worker event only to get caught out by the local press for paying to set up the whole sham. I mean, I'm just shocked. Shocked. Well,
not that shocked.
As you may recall, Joe Biden stood with union workers on the picket line late last year.
We've created more than 250,000 auto jobs all across America.
Donald Trump is a scab.
And in an attempt to say, anything you can do, I can do, stranger, Trump held his own event in a non-union auto shop, but his team claimed it was full of union workers. Look, there's one there that supports him.
Their union was negotiating a terrible thing, doing a terrible thing. They were negotiating hourly wages, but they weren't talking about the electric vehicles because they can have all the wages they want, but in 2 years they're not going to have a job.
Immediately it reeked a fish, considering this is the same person who's been on record as proudly anti-union his entire career while exploiting labor. In fact, the UAW president gave a detailed description of just how anti-union Trump has been his entire life.
Could have considered Donald Trump. You did not. Why not?
You know, if you look at just the facts and the body of work of both candidates and, both of them in their own words, nowhere in history has Donald Trump ever stood for the American worker. He stands against pretty much everything that we stand for. I had to look at a lot of things, and overall, we just had our contract fight with the big three, and our most successful contract in history, and President Biden stood there with us on the picket line, unlike President Trump back in 19 when GM was on strike for 40 days and he was completely non-existent and silent on the issue. I can go down through the list of things, the difference in the candidates, but in 2008, 2009, the economic recession, Donald Trump blamed the workers for what was wrong with these companies. In 19, also in 15, when Volkswagen workers voted to organize, he put an NLRB in place that killed the organizing, the contract for those workers.
But still, knowing how woefully ignorant many are to his lies and scams, Trump's camp thought they could get away with paying crowd members to hold up signs saying, quote, union members for Trump. But as Rachel Maddow explained in her segment, the Detroit News were on the ground and they questioned people in the crowd, specifically an individual who held a sign that said union members for Trump, where she acknowledged that she wasn't a union member at all.
Recognizing that Biden was siding with these auto workers and the country was with him and with them on this, one of the Republican candidates did try to do something different. The day after Biden ended up on the picket line in Michigan, this one Republican candidate decided not to go to that Republican presidential candidate's debate. He skipped it. And instead, he himself went to Michigan to go try to do basically what Biden did, to go show up and be seen with the union auto workers in Michigan. Kind of. Whereupon he promptly stepped on a rake. trying to make it look like he was supporting these union auto workers who were out on strike, who the whole country was rallying in support of, he instead went to a non-union auto parts facility. And while his campaign tried to convince people to say that he was there speaking to striking auto workers, or at least he was speaking to auto workers, the problem was that real reporters actually went to the event. And they realized quickly that this was a facility that doesn't have anybody in a union. And then the reporters did what reporters do. They talked to the people who were physically there. And so this was the Detroit News the next day. Quote, one individual in the crowd who held a sign that said union members for Trump acknowledged to a Detroit News reporter that she was not a union member. Another person with a sign that read auto workers for Trump, when asked for an interview, said that he wasn't an auto worker. Neither person provided their names. This was very embarrassing, right? He's trying to look like he was supporting the union, but he's at a non-union facility that he filled with people who were given signs and effectively told to pretend to be union workers or even to pretend to be auto workers when they were no such thing. He did a fake event. I mean, the whole thing was fake. And then it was in the Detroit press the next day that it was fake. This you skipped the debate for?
And Maddow went a step further, pulling up literal receipts to the tune of $20,000.
It was so embarrassing at the time. And now, as of right now, there are receipts. Literal receipts. The campaign finance filings that just came out for all the various campaigns. Reporter Jonathan Oosting at Bridge, Michigan dug in and found that on that day in September, the Trump campaign indeed paid a $20,000 rental fee to pay to rent that auto parts plant, which was not a union facility, so he could pretend it was full of union auto workers who supported him when it was actually just full of randos holding signs that said that's who they were, even though that's not who they were. It's just an amazing thing. I mean, you think of things that ended previous presidential campaigns, right? Howard Dean was too close to a microphone when he shouted with excitement after doing pretty well in the Iowa caucuses. Your campaign must end. You were too close to the microphone. Gerald Ford got lost in the middle of a sentence about Eastern Europe in a debate once. Poppy Bush said, read my lips, before he said no new taxes, which was like uncharacteristically memorable phrasing from him. And so people actually remembered it, which turned out to be really bad for him when the no new taxes thing didn't really work out. I mean, campaigns have been laid low by some dumb and small stuff. But here's a candidate faking a union event with fake union members and fake auto workers who were given signs by the campaign to falsely identify themselves in the hopes that no one would check. And then they got caught. And it's like, what else you got? Did he ever wear a tan suit?
Is anyone surprised that the man who was on record spewing more than 100 lies just this past fall and is on course to break that record before the spring this year would lie and deceive voters? But it is a testament to how little they seem to care. Knowing that this could be so easily traced back, his camp seemed comfortable in their lies that they didn't really try to hide it. And the fact that it's taken until February of 2024 for this to become as big a story as it now is, considering it happened back in September of 2023, is an indictment of the mainstream news media. Sure, we can blame complacency. When someone lies as much as he does, it can get tiring.
Up and I said, wow,
so there we go. So this is part of the issue here. So Donald Trump saying that he won New Hampshire not only in previous primaries, but that he won New Hampshire in the general election is not true. Donald Trump did, to his credit, in 2016 win the New Hampshire Republican primary. He did in 2020 win the New Hampshire Republican primary. But both in 2016, when he was competing against Hillary Clinton in the general election, he narrowly lost New Hampshire in the general election. And then in 2020, when he was competing against Joe Biden in the general election, he lost New Hampshire by a good, fair chunk of vote. So the former president has opened his remarks tonight once again by proclaiming falsehoods about previous elections. This is what makes it hard to take his pronouncements live. We'll try again, though.
That's exactly what Trump and his team wants. He wants to break enough people down through spewing constant lies and disinformation that it all just blends together in a shade of gray.
We're going to have a replay of what we saw in 2020. And there's a lot of concerns, actually, that I've seen now recently with Donald Trump on the stump.
You cannot
right?
compare the two.
Absolutely, we can. You know, last night he said he won New Hampshire in the general election. He lost it to Hillary Clinton. Lost it to Joe Biden by 7 points.
You
right?
cannot compare the two.
Haley, he mixed up
Polling
Nikki
shows
Haley.
two-thirds of
He mixed up
people say
Nikki
no.
Haley and Nancy Pelosi.
And he can appear, quote, pro-union without pushback. But he did get caught, and it won't be the last time that he'll lie to the American people.
The Biden team can say, well, if things are so bad, how come the stock market's on a roll?
Because they think I'm going to be elected.
That you think the stock market's rallying because people think you're going to be elected?
Yeah. If you take a look at Iowa, if you take a look at New Hampshire,
they said the stock market will boom if I'm elected. If he's elected, the stock market will crash.
Okay.
12 seconds later.
Finished the week 10-year about 4.14.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.